Welcome to another episode of our video series of the mechanics of human cognition. Ben, it's good to be with you. Always a pleasure, Anya. You know, it really feels like we can't escape the topic of AI these days, can we? It's just front and center no matter where you look.
Exactly, and that's actually the perfect place to start, with a question that gets at this really subtle everyday friction between our technology and our own minds. I mean, we're all surrounded by these devices that measure and track us, but what's the cognitive trade-off?
This leads us right into what you could call the smart device paradox. Because on the one hand, we've got this unprecedented access to biometric data about ourselves. But on the other, there's a real and growing concern that this constant stream of external data is actually overriding our own interoceptive awareness. You know, that innate ability to just sense our body's internal state.
Precisely. We effectively start to outsource our self-perception. So instead of intuitively feeling rested, we check our watch for a sleep score. And that reliance creates this feedback loop where the device, not us, becomes the authority on our own experience. That little bit of discomfort it creates, well, it points to a much more fundamental set of distinctions we really need to understand.
And to even begin to frame the larger conversation about artificial intelligence properly, we have to get really precise with our language. The terms intelligence and reason get used interchangeably all the time in popular discussion, but from a cognitive and philosophical perspective, they describe very, very different functions.
That's so true. And for this, we can actually borrow a really useful conceptual toolkit from Turkish philosophy, which makes this incredibly sharp distinction between zeka, which we can think of as intelligence, and akıl, which maps much more closely to reason or judgment. It's a really powerful lens to look through.
Yeah, so if you look at this comparison, zeka is that raw computational probabilistic faculty. It's objective, it's cold, and it's universally applicable to solving a defined problem. It's all about calculating the odds. But akıl, on the other hand, is contextual, and it's completely value-laden. It's the faculty that understands the stakes. It's what lets us ask, not just, can we do this, but should we do this?
Okay, let's ground this in a really practical thought experiment that makes the distinction incredibly clear. So just imagine you're faced with a simple, everyday moral dilemma.
All right, so your intelligence, your zeka, immediately runs a kind of statistical analysis based on all the available data and your past experience. And it concludes, look, the most probable outcome here is deception, so the logical, optimal action is to refuse. It's just a pure optimization problem.
But then akıl, your reason, steps in, and it doesn't even dispute the probability. Instead, what it does is it reframes the entire problem. It introduces a value judgment, and it starts weighing the human cost of being wrong in either direction.
And this is the critical function. Reason allows for a completely non-linear kind of valuation. It basically asserts that some outcomes are so significant that they have to be weighted far beyond their statistical probability. And this capacity, this ability to override pure calculation with a value-based framework, is for now at least a uniquely human domain. Today's AI is an absolute master of zeka. It has no akıl.
But you know, there's another layer here. Because effectively mediating between the cold calculations of intelligence and the value judgments of reason, that requires a higher order cognitive function, wisdom. And this brings us to another really valuable distinction, the difference between being a know-it-all, or bilgich, and being truly wise, bilge. A know-it-all possesses a vast database of information. A large language model is the quintessential bilgich. It can tell you what, but it has absolutely zero comprehension of why.
Right. Whereas a wise person, the bilge, doesn't just possess information, they apply it with context, with judgment, and with foresight. So wisdom is really the integration of intelligence and reason over time and through experience.
And when you understand this distinction, it really helps diagnose a recurring pattern we see all throughout human history. This societal anxiety that surrounds displays of superior intelligence, especially when that intelligence is untethered from wisdom.
Exactly. The fear we're seeing about AI right now isn't new. It's just a modern manifestation of a very ancient anxiety. Societies have historically been suspicious of pure, unbridled zeka. I mean, think of the execution of Socrates or the persecution of countless intellectuals. It's a fear of an intelligence that operates outside the established norms and values, outside of the communal akıl. And this anxiety also plays directly into the economic cycle of the technology itself. The history of AI is just a series of booms and busts, what we call AI winters. And these cycles are driven by the gap between the hype, the promise of this godlike zeka, and the actual technological reality. The immense pressure from the investment levels we see today is precisely why we see so much hype, which in turn fuels both public excitement and that deep-seated fear.
So, given this really complex cognitive and social landscape, what's the path forward? It's not to reject or fear intelligence, but it's to cultivate the reason and the wisdom that are required to steer it properly.
You know, there's a powerful mental model that helps clarify this relationship. It reframes AI not as some alien competitor, but as a cognitive artifact, as a tool.
Just think of AI as a glove. It has immense power, incredible capabilities, far exceeding what a bare hand can do. But the glove itself has no agency, it has no intent. It's animated and directed by the hand that's inside it, and that's us. Our natural intelligence, our reason, our values, our wisdom. It's a powerful intent amplifier. It makes a benevolent hand more effective, and it makes a malevolent hand more dangerous. The ultimate responsibility never ever lies with the tool, it always lies with the user. Which means the most critical task for us is to cultivate the quality of our hand. To guide a tool this powerful, we need a very particular kind of wisdom. One thinker has proposed a new term for this, sheep head, which really elegantly combines the Turkish words for doubt and wisdom.
And this gets right to the heart of what true wisdom is, from a scientific and cognitive perspective. It's not about the accumulation of static certainties, it's the embrace of a sophisticated kind of doubt. Without that healthy skepticism, knowledge just calcifies into dogma. Doubt is the engine of intellectual humility and genuine progress. It's the very quality we need for our hand to be worthy of the glove.
And this really is the central question of our era. The ultimate challenge isn't the accelerating power of our artificial intelligence. It's the developmental pace of our own natural wisdom.
The tool is here, and it's becoming more powerful every single day. The test now is a purely human one. It's a test of our collective maturity and of the quality of the reason, the will, that we choose to exercise.